Hi, this is Des Adams on the Sales Vision Mindset 360, Year 12, Level 12. And today is all about a very important topic of forgiving yourself and others. Yeah, I find this topic, it's a very emotional one. Asia has presented to us an incredible story, a life story that she's had in order to come to grips with forgiving and also not only forgiving people but forgiving herself. And we really need to ask, as I've asked over the years, so what is forgiveness? And Asia described it so beautifully by saying, and forgive me if I'm reading this, forgiveness is a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance towards a person or group who have harmed you, regardless of whether they deserve your forgiveness. And in many ways, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, nor does it mean condoning or excusing the offence. Forgiveness brings the forgiver, and this is something I've had to learn, a peace of mind and frees you from coercive anger, and you can heal and move on with your life. And she mentioned various Bible verses which reinforce this revolution. In my life, I've had quite a few ventures that have involved me having to forgive. It goes right back to my childhood when I was the youngest of 4 children and just born just about at the end of the Second World War. And during that time in Australia, we had a lot of American servicemen serving in, doing recreation leave in Australia because the war was right up to the north of Australia in Coral Sea, and it was actually it was Australia was very lucky to be able to escape the ravages of the war. But during that time, my sister Joyce, and this has caused a lot of trauma in my life. She was raped by 3 American Marines in a local park in our area, and for many years she actually committed suicide as a result of this. And for many years, as a young person, I kept on asking Mum and Dad, what actually happened to her? And of course, it was so painful for them that they just didn't want to tell me the truth. And it was only till I was about 12, I think, from memory, that my sister sat down and explained exactly what had happened. And it took, it must have taken an enormous effort for my parents they probably at that time they weren't aware of forgiveness to the extent that they held on to this grief for so long. It sort of dominated their lives. The second issue for me was when my niece went in for a routine operation and for a appendix operation, and she actually died on the operating theatre, which was a terrible event for 2 when I was a young person. That was one of the first funeral I ever went to, which was pretty depressing. But we found out later that the anaesthetist was going to play golf on that particular day, and she didn't thoroughly check to have my niece pumped out before the operation. And that was a traumatic event to find that out. But of course, forgiveness brings the forgiver peace of mind, and I realise now that it frees you from coercive anger, and you can heal and move on with your life. And by holding on to, and I've come to realise that the reason you have to forgive yourself as well as others is because if you carry so much hatred in your heart, you are using way too much energy and you're actually punishing yourself. And Asia stressed this in her talk, that by holding this hatred, you can't move forward, you can't see the positivity and the abundance that there is in the world by using positive thoughts and visualizations to bring you the success that you can get by forgiveness. The third issue was once again with my parents, and this was really hard, this one. What happened was a sort of a funny side to it. When I was at school, I always imagined I don't know why this happened, but I even said to my classmates, I am positive I'm going to marry an Asian girl. I didn't know any Asians at that time, and I had no idea, of the future at that point. Anyhow, it came to bring my new girlfriend home, and of course I bring home this Asian girl, and Mum and Dad, they sort of, after the dinner, they took me aside and they said, do you realise she's Asian? and of course, that created a lot of issues, because my parents were very strict Methodist, and they just didn't want anything to do with other nationalities. It came to a point where they weren't going to come to our wedding, but actually Mum and Dad went through a great period of forgiveness, because they actually met. Well, we offered to get married my wife Nancy wanted to get married in a Catholic church, and of course my parents were horrified at that. So we then offered, well, why don't we get married in a neutral setting? And they weren't too keen on that either. But it just shows you the power of forgiveness. Our parents went and they met the priest where our local church was, and they sat down with him, and he explained, and he actually helped them, go through the period of forgiveness, so that they did actually come to our wedding and they really enjoyed it. So we were overjoyed with that. The other issue of forgiveness, which I had a lot of problems with, was my brother never turned up at our wedding. And this ate at me for years, because not only was he, never said anything why he didn't come, but, deep down I felt that it was a racial thing that stopped him from coming to the wedding. But he never explained it to me, and I held that for years. Actually years. It's only recently that we've come to, to talk to one another and become involved in our lives again. It's sort of, you have to learn, and what I've learned is that you have to learn to go past the pain and learn to forgive yourself. And certainly, as Asia said, remember, we are not perfect. I'm not perfect. And you definitely, I've certainly learned that you definitely need to forgive yourself. And more importantly for people, if you have some of these issues, just remember that a lot of people are suffering from these things as well. And you have to forgive, especially your parents, and I certainly have done that. And I forgive myself for believing that persons who abandoned, rejected, abused me still have power over my life. That's the key thing with forgiveness, is that I feel is that by not forgiving people, those other people actually have power over your life, and they determine and they're holding you back from making a breakthrough. And I really loved Aisha's epiphany that the other side of forgiving is somebody else is a realization the only person I really need to forgive is myself. And once you learn to forgive, you can get many, many breakthroughs, and that's what I'm finding, particularly why I've found this particular unit has been so important to me, because I've gone through this whole period of, not forgiving people, and it's only fairly recently that I've begun to understand, and this unit has really crystallised the importance of forgiving both yourself and also your others. So it really has been an amazing experience to go through, and I mean, to look at Asia, you would not believe that she's been through all the trauma that she's been through, and it shows you the power of how important it is to overcome your fears, forgive yourself, and of course forgive others. So I'm really looking forward now to going forward and learning a lot from this program that I'm doing, and I would love you to join us and get involved in the training, because it really is life-changing. And if you'd like to, by all means, click the link in the video description, and I look forward to speaking with you in the next video. Thank you.